You're listening to Rendezvous with the Writer with Bobbi Jean and Jim Bell, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to Rendezvous with the Writer, where readers and writers meet, and story is everything. We're your hosts tonight, Jim and Bobbi Bell.
And we're so happy that you're joining us, and we appreciate you coming along for the ride, whether you're watching or listening live tonight, or you pick up this as a podcast on your favorite streaming platform tomorrow. We're delighted. And that was the Hot Texas Swing Band kicking off tonight's show with Hot Texas, an original by the band.
Yeah.
Jim, so who's our special guest
We have a
tonight?
special guest tonight, Jim Jones. He's an author. He's a songwriter. He's a storyteller. He's really good.
Yeah, and he's kind of a neighbor and a friend. Hey, welcome, Jim.
Great to be here. It's good to see you guys.
Jim, do you want to tell you did just tell them a little bit, but
we have a little formal bio here. Jim Jones is a Western folk singer, songwriter, and author, a native Texan who hangs his hat in New Mexico. His songs and books are about the West, cowboys, horses and cattle rustlers, the people and land, river and mountains, and the beauty of the Western sky. Jim has produced 11 Western folk albums, as well as 5 Western novels, a novella, and a children's book series. Now, Jim has this to say about himself. Sitting around a campfire, at a table, in a bar, or standing in front of an auditorium full of fans, my friends and I spin yarns. Some are true, some are fabricated. Many are a combination of the two, but all are Western. I hope my stories make you think and feel, but more than anything, I hope they entertain you. Please welcome storyteller, Mr. Jim Jones. Glad to have you here, Jim.
Good to be here.
Very excited. Can you hand me the cover? Hand me his album, so I can. We're going to be talking tonight about a number of things. But Jim, you've begun to brand yourself a little bit as a storyteller, and your new album, which we'll be talking about in greater detail in the second segment of tonight's show, is Jim Jones' Storyteller, Tales from the West. Tell us a little bit about how storyteller came about.
Well, the term, I came up with it because, you know, these days, marketing and publicity, I mean, you kind of have to do it. My dog just joined us, by the way. This is Ruby.
Hello, Ruby.
She likes to be on podcasts and stuff. You know, branding yourself is always an issue for publicists and that sort of thing. And I work with a wonderful group of publicists, Blue Cottage Agency, and Krista and Janelle, and you know, they stay after me about, okay, fine tune your brand, hone your brand. And you know, somebody asks me what I do, I start mumbling about, well, I write songs and I sing songs, but I also write books, and then sometimes I write children's books, and then I'm doing other stuff. And it occurred to me at one point, maybe there's a word that describes all of that, and that is storyteller. And so that's kind of what I came up with. And it's kind of code for I make up stuff. I have license to make up stuff.
You tell your stories, as you just said, in a variety of ways. The first way that we're going to just talk about in this segment is about that written word. and how you moved from written word into song, maybe. And we can start with, yes, you have a much better cover. My cover is old.
Oh, yeah, this is the new one.
This is the new one. Tell us a little bit about Rustler's Moon.
Well, it's available through Speaking Volumes Press, so they know that I gave them a plug. They're a great smaller publisher, and just been a pleasure to work with. Rustler's Moon started out as a song, and the story of what a Rustler's Moon was, I, as we like to say in the trade, borrowed it from Larry McMurtry, straight out of Lonesome Dove. And it's the concept of the quarter moon being the best time to rustle cattle. Not that I'm inclined to rustle cattle, but if you were, that's the time to do it. And it's funny because I hear people talking about, well, I wrote this song, it came to me in a dream, and I'm like, well, I wish songs would come to me in dreams. But actually, I did wake up with the idea that's in the first line in the song Rustler's Moon, which is the first time I saw him. He was standing on a hill looking 10 times larger than life. I had this image in my head. So I wrote this song that was a story, and people seemed to like it. And so after a while, I remember driving home from Colorado to New Mexico, going through the country up there, the Big Empty in northern New Mexico, and thinking, man, there's a lot more to this story. And thinking, I've never written a book. How hard could it be? A whole lot harder than I ever imagined. But that's how it got started. And so there's always been kind of a link between my books and my music. It went from a song to a book, and then I've got a couple of, probably 3 songs that are written after the book was written, and then another song that was written before one of the books was written. So they just kind of they seem to go hand in hand, and they're all stories, and so I just like expanded them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we should listen to Rustler's Moon?
If we
can, yeah.
Yes, let's take a listen to Rustler's Moon.
The first time I saw him, he was standing on a hill, looking 10 times larger than life. Well, I can't erase the image, and I guess I never will. After all the years, it cuts just like a knife. He said, howdy cowboy, now ain't you mighty young to travel down the road to rage and ruin? But if you got the notion and if you got a gun, we ride tonight by the light of the Rustler's Moon. He said an outlaw never travels when the moon is full and bright. The posse on your trail is hard to shake. But if you travel with the new moon, you travel without light, and your horse won't make it far if his leg breaks. Quarter moon's the answer, the old man's on your side. The time to seize the night is coming soon. So saddle up those horses, it's time for us to ride and try our luck by the light of the Rustler's Moon. 'Cause we ride at night by the light of the Rustler's Moon, shining through our souls. And we live or die underneath the sky by the light of the Rustler's Moon, the Rustler's Moon.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with the Writer. Special guest Jim Jones and this great song, Rustler's Moon.
And Jim, of course, has recorded it on an earlier CD, but you also did a very special album. It was just a year ago, Jim, right? or so.
Yeah, just about a year ago.
Yeah. Words and music. You want to talk a little bit about what the story behind this album and why you decided to put this one together?
We sort of unwittingly set this up, didn't we? When I was saying that the songs had books and the books had songs, and that's really been the case for a long time. But actually, Susan is the one. My partner Susan said, you ought to do a combination, and so I said, oh, that's brilliant, and I'll pretend like it's my idea, but I won't do it. But so what I ended up doing is I just don't update my bio, but I actually have 6 novels out, and I don't know how many albums. Probably, yeah, got those. And so what I did was start with the first one, which is Rustler's Moon, and I did the intro was an excerpt that I read from the book, and it's about 2.5 minutes long. Then it goes into the song. Then I did that with the second book, which is Colorado Moon, and on through all the books. And it's kind of a different thing. It's not. Nothing I do is very commercial anyway. So it's one more thing. It was a little different version of non-commercial, I guess, but it's an interesting thing, I think, because it really illustrates, how those two things, storytelling formats can come together. So
this in this series, we'll call it the Moon series because the moon is in every title. Yep. Takes place in New Mexico.
Yep.
And you want to tell us a little bit about how you chose to place it there, and a little backstory to the actual story.
Sure. And, I mentioned driving home from Colorado and getting this brilliant idea to embark on a second career that pays nothing. So as I was thinking about, maybe writing a book, and I knew I had to set it somewhere, and I am a native Texan, but I've been in New Mexico now for, 34 years anyway. And, of course, at the time, that was more like in the 2000s when I started, but writing the books. But I thought, well, there's probably a way to set it in New Mexico. So I started just reading some New Mexico history. And everybody knows about Billy the Kid and the Lincoln County Wars and stuff down in the southern part of the state. But what I found was that was just part of the bigger picture, which was, and this is going to rock people's world, but there were actually corrupt politicians back then. Thank God we're past that. But and in particular, there was a group called the Santa Fe Ring, headed up by Sam Catron, who Catron County is named for. And Catron and his cronies they found ways, they were attorneys, they found ways to even legally hoodwink poor people out of their land, and when they couldn't do that, they just hire thugs and kill them and then get their land. At one point in the late 1800s, Sam Catron owned more acres of land than anyone else in the entire United States. He owned over 1 million acres of land in New Mexico. And so they were really bad guys. And so I thought, well, you got to have bad guys, and that's kind of how it started. And a lot of that was going on in Colfax County. So I set it in Colfax County. I'd been to Cimarron, New Mexico, and the St. James Hotel has been there for a long, long, long time. So it all just kind of came together. It seemed like a good place to set it. And of course, my protagonist, Jared Delaney, had to be a Texan. So he is, but he's transplanted Texan, and it's just gone on from there.
Do you go ahead?
I was saying, Jared, is he in all the books or just the Moon series books, as we're calling them?
He's the main character in all 4 of the Moon books. There's the spinoff is The Big Empty and The Lights of Cimarron, and there's a character that first came to be in the second book, Colorado Moon, and then he got pretty prominent in the third book, Waning Moon, and he kind of earned his own book, and that's Tommy Stallings. But Jared makes appearances in the 2 Tommy Stallings books, but he's in all 4. He's the central character in all 4 of the the Moon books, and I'm working hard on the 5th book.
So, do your characters? We love to ask that question. Do your characters ever surprise you, Jim? Do they ever say, "I'm not saying that," or "I'm not killing that person," or
Absolutely. I was just talking with somebody just the other day about that, and I've talked with authors, lots of authors, about it, that, if you write a series particularly, then, and you have characters that are in the books, you really get to know them, and you sort of create them. But once you've created them, and this is not like Stephen King, that he wrote a book about a guy whose characters kind of took over. It was really spooky. It's not that eerie, but I certainly have had moments where I would be thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how it's going to go. And then all of a sudden I'm going, well, that's not what I'm typing, and that's not where they're going. And that's not what they want to do.
Writer's block. Do you get it?
Not so much. I think the thing I learned is the way to get out of not to have writer's block is just keep writing. And the good news is you get to keep writing. The bad news is you write a bunch of crud when you're, until you kind of get the juices flowing and everything. But if you never stop writing, you don't really get writer's block. You just have to write some stuff that you have to go back and edit or throw out or whatever. But
we, I think we're going to see about taking a very short break and show our listeners one of the many places that your books are available, which is through our Out West Shop bookshop.org page. And so here's a word about where to get all the books of our Rendezvous with a Writer guests. Story is everything. Find a great one on Out West Shop's bookshop. Go to outwestshop.com. Find books and CDs on the menu. Choose Shop Out West on bookshop.org. Browse through featured authors on Rendezvous with a Writer. Explore curated book lists and our featured picks. Add in note cards, calendars, and jigsaw puzzles. One-stop shopping for great gifts. Use the search box to find thousands more titles. Make the switch. Your purchase supports us as independent booksellers. That's our story.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with a Writer with special guest Jim Jones. We've been talking about his series of books, and they are good books, by the way, folks. You'll want to read them. And there are bad guys, but fortunately, the good guys get them.
Yeah, and the bad guys are bad enough that you want them done with. You want those good guys to get them.
Yes, we do.
Yep. And the second way that between the books and music, music inspiring the books, now we're going to talk a little bit about music, just music, which is how we first, of course, came to meet you and to fall in love with your work. So this is your most recent album, Jim Jones Storyteller, Tales from the West. This is a fabulous collection of music, and we're going to play a few songs from it. But let's just talk about the album and the concept, and just give us some background on this, how this came to be.
Okay. Well, you just want me to just go, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I told you that how I sort of stumbled into this storyteller kind of as a brand. And so then there's a number of components, and I'll try to be concise, but I had this bucket list of things I want to do before I die of old age, which is coming quicker than I want it to, I'm sure. And one of them was work with a wonderful producer, Don Richmond, up in Colorado. And I got that done, checked off that box. Then the other producer I really wanted to work with was Merle Brigante from Liberty Hills, Texas, outside of Austin. Some of my friends had worked with him, and I'd met him, and he's a great producer, great guy. He's an old guy. He's older than me, and I like that. But he was the percussion. He was the drummer for Loggins and Messina, and he played with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and just all this stuff. He's a brilliant producer, and so I wanted to work with him. So he agreed, and we were going to do a project. Well, I started thinking about, what do I want it to be? And I was thinking about the storyteller idea, and I thought, I want to write some songs that are literally about the West, really about people in the West. Some of them are historical figures. Some of them are people that are alive today that I ended up writing about, and events also. There's some events in there. And so one of the things I did, and I know you were going to ask me about co-writing. Well, one of the things I did was pick out some people that I've written with who I really enjoyed working with and liked their work, and reached out to them and I said, here's what I want to do. And let's brainstorm what kind of topics we might come up with. And so some of them were topics that I came up with and we wrote together, or a couple that I wrote by myself. And some of them were topics the other person came up with. And then we wrote these songs about people that really lived or live in the West. And these truly are tales from the West. I mean, these are stories set in the West that reflect, the people, the work ethic, the culture, the landscape, everything about the West that I love, and I wanted to convey to people. And that's where the whole thing came from.
Let's go ahead, and the first song that we're going to do from the album was a co-write with RG Yoho, and it's called "Ride for the Brand." You want to quickly tell us a little bit about this song, and then I think Sam is going to play it.
Okay, Bob Yoho is a great guy, good friend of mine. He's a wonderful writer and also a poet. And he sent me a poem and said, "You want to make that into a song?" And I said, "Well, hang on, let's do it." And so it's a real collaboration in terms of us having some different points of view that are reflected in the lyrics of the song.
And Bob is going to be a guest on an upcoming show, so we're very excited. Let's go ahead, Sam, if you're available to go ahead and play "Ride for the Brand."
It's out with the old, in with the new. It's a crazy world, what's a cowboy to do? Try to make sense, but you don't understand what it means these days to ride for the brand. Things keep a-changing with all we've been through, and we're so far apart in our points of view. What happened to heroes in taking a stand? And what does it mean to ride for the brand? When you ride for the brand, you're true to your word, rounding up strays, protecting the herd. When trouble comes calling, you lend a hand, 'cause that's what you do when you ride for the brand. We got miscommunication.
And we're back.
All right. Thank you, Jim Jones. Ride for the Brand. Jim, can you give us a little brief description? What does that mean, ride for the brand?
Well, it means that, and this is an old cowboy term, been around a long time. When you hire on as a hand, you're working for an outfit. You're working for usually a ranch, and they have a brand, and so you represent that outfit and that brand. And everything you do reflects on them, and you owe them and give them your loyalty and your best. And that's what it means, really, is to be loyal to your group, whoever that is, whoever you've chosen as the group that you belong to be loyal to them and give them your best, I think, really.
Well, and when you first started talking about branding, yourself as storyteller, we, whether we wear shirts that have some company's logo on them or whatever, brand is a quite a kind of a term we hear bantered about a lot. And I would say that you choosing storyteller kind of is your brand means everything that you do, which this show will hopefully show, is true to the brand you've named yourself.
Yeah, and just to clear it up, I don't have an actual physical brand. I'm pretty passionate about this, but not that passionate.
You don't have the Yellowstone Y somewhere?
That's what made me think of it. No Y's for me.
The next song we're going to play, if you can just give us a little bit about Mustanger.
that is one of those that's based on a true story of a historical figure. And I wrote the words, and Mariam Funk, who's a member of the Cowboy Way along with me, did the music. It's real quickly. It's about a man who's is a former slave who came to Texas, hired on with a brand actually, and the man was really kind to him and took him in and treated him fairly, helped him learn to be a cowboy. But he had a gift as basically a connection with wild horses, and it was so good at taming wild horses, he became known in late 19th century Texas as the Mustanger.
And Sam, if you are available, go ahead and let's hear the Mustanger.
All right.
To know what freedom really means, try starting out a slave. No choice, no chance, only chains from the cradle to the grave. But a hand up beats a hand out every single time. So you head west, find a friend, one who's colorblind. He could pay your wages, share his name. He could treat you like a man. He could show you the ways of cattle. He could help you make a hand. But there's a special gift you had who knew from whence it came. And with work and luck, grit and pluck, you earned yourself a name, Mustanger. All alone you would ride out, become one with the herd. Through rain and dust you'd earn that trust without a single word. You climb on that old lead stallion right until he's through. You take control of their hearts and souls, then they'd follow you. Mustanger. Out on Wild Horse Mesa.
Mustanger, that's a great song, Jim.
Thank you.
Now we have the next one, Cowboy Heart. Can you talk about that just a second?
I can do that. I wrote that with my friend Deanna McCall, who's a wonderful author, poet, and there may be a few people in the world that are as cowboy as Deanna is, but there's nobody that's more cowboy than Deanna McCall. She's been in ranching and worked cattle and knows everything about it her entire life. She also can, after you're all done, everybody else is kind of laid out because we're so tired, she'll go in and cook a gourmet meal for you. That's Deanna McCall. And I wrote a song with her and a little help from her husband, Dave, back that won the Wrangler in 2022 called Old Horses and Old Men. So I really wanted to work more with her. So I got this idea when I heard her on a podcast talking about her life, much of what I already knew about, but there were some things she said. And I thought I got to write a song with Deanna about Deanna. So it's about being born into that life and staying in it your entire life.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a listen to Cowboy Heart, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about it in depth.
Okay.
You were the only one to stay, the only one who knew the way. When no one else was there, you always did your part. To tend the land, the horses and cattle, you were the one to hang and rattle. You were the only one with the cowboy heart. You were the one to hear the call, the only one of them all. Your sisters and brothers left to make a brand new start. But you knew the cowboy way, it was written in your DNA. You were the one with the cowboy heart. You got cowboy in your blood, cowboy in your heart. From the beginning you understood, you were lion bred from the start. with the wind in your face, reins in your hand. Make no mistake, you were born to this land. You know who you are. You got a cowboy heart.
We're back with our featured guest, Jim Jones's music. Of course, we're only able to play about a minute and a half of all these wonderful songs. So we would encourage you to pick up this album or download this album so that you get all of the music to these songs. We're kind of teasing you a little bit. So, Jim, let's talk a little bit about maybe the process of co-writing. Were you in studio together? Were you doing Zoom calls? Tell us about what's the process like to co-write.
Well, the funny thing is it's a little different for each of the different writers that I've worked with. We do a lot of it remotely. Even if, like, there's a couple of songs that I wrote with Alan Chapman. And one of them, we got the idea when we were together, and we worked a little bit on it. And then we emailed back and forth, and then I would send him like kind of what I'd come up with to add to what he had sent me, and he would come back with some things. Same thing with Deanna. I talked to her about the idea, and I sent her some a couple of maybe some lyric ideas, but then she wrote kind of a poet's perspective, and she's is real good about saying, okay, here you go, now do whatever you want to with it. And then, like in her case, and with Alan, and it just so happened that I wrote the music for both the songs, and same thing with Deanna, because she doesn't play any instruments. I wrote a song that's on the album with Randy Brown, a great songwriter from East Texas, and it's a song about the last grizzly bear in Colorado, and we really collaborated on the music. I mean, he kind of came up with the basic music, and then I kind of polished it up a little bit, gave it a little shine. But so it varies. When I can get together with someone in person, I'd like to do it, but it's harder and harder these days, especially when you're working with people that live other places. So we've gotten, thanks to the silver lining from the pandemic is we're getting pretty good with Zoom and stuff like that. So get it done.
It appears that sometimes you do the music, sometimes you do the lyrics.
Well, in all of these songs, I was involved in the lyrics. In all of them, I was involved with the music as well. There's a few songs where I did all the music, but not. And then in like Mustanger, like I said, Mariam did all the music. Mariam's from Germany, and so I said, well, he said, I don't write lyrics, and I said, well, could you write them in German? He said, I don't write lyrics in 2 languages. But it's okay, because he writes such incredible music that it makes up for it. And, so like it's really mixed bag. It's different for different people. When I write with Randy Houston, we generally sit down in a room together and hash it out. And so it varies.
Yeah.
How did you pick these songs? Did you this all new music for this album, or did you have a couple in the drawer you pulled out?
It's all brand new music. I think I told you the other day I had 2 songs I was going to put on the album that had been recorded in the past that were co-writes, both of them, and then it just turned out it just wasn't feasible, so I didn't. But so they got left on the cutting room floor. But all 10 songs on the album are brand new songs, the first time they've seen the light of day.
So tell us a little bit about actually going in that wonderful studio with Merle, and did you go in with music just all charted, and then he tell us a little bit about what went on in the actual recording of it.
Well, it's kind of like cooking. I mean, there's just layers, there's step by step. And so the first step is that I went to the studio, and I think I had sent him demos of all the songs, so he kind of knew what to expect. And then I played basically like a scratch track or of the guitar and vocal. And then I added what in most cases was the keeper guitar part, and also did a pretty good vocal that was a scratch vocal or a guide vocal for the musicians so they could hear where they were in the song and everything. And interestingly enough, some of what I sang ended up in the final mix, because he ends up, like, for example, I did probably think 4 different tracks on each song of vocals, and then the technology is so amazing that he's like a surgeon. I mean, he can just cut this out and put that there and mix and match. And I pretty much sing them the same every time, but there's little variations here and there. And then most of the musicians that he works with are elsewhere. There's one in Los Angeles and one in Nashville, and then they got one from Austin that comes. Actually 2 from Austin, but one comes in to the studio, and the rest of it, he sends the file to them and they record it in their studio that they use and send it back. And so, I mean, they're people I've never met face to face, and they've never met me.
So what's it like to hear, like the first time all the pieces are there? What is that like?
I just got chills. It's cool. I mean, these players are so good. Oh my goodness, they're so amazing, and they come up with stuff that in a million years I would have never thought of. Like on the Mustanger, the piano player was the first one to add anything to it, and so he starts putting this kind of a funky sounding keyboard. I was like, I think that is super cool. And then everybody did the lick that he was doing. And so then we have Cody Braun played mandolin, and he's from the band Reckless Kelly. I mean, he's like, those guys are big name in Americana, but he does studio work. And so he's playing the same lick on the mandolin. And then we have a Hammond B3 organ. And on another song, Lori Beth Brooke played the accordion, and then on the first one you played, Ride for the Brand, our buddy John Chandler from Western Writers and IWMA played the harmonica. So I just have all these, these people that just come in and just put all the icing on the cake. I mean, it's just, I could just go on. Harmonies. I mean, Merle is an amazing harmony singer. His wife, Sarah Pierce, is so good. There's a song, They Dance, that's a real touching song, and she sings the female part in that and makes it really a duet, even though she's singing the harmony. I mean, I can't listen to it without getting my allergies kind of acting up, because it's. I was so lucky with all the different people that I'm working with. It's just amazing.
So, for instance, when you were hearing piano, so what had you said to Merle? I really hear like piano should be in here, or Merle just knew this needs a such and such.
Well, it's interesting. We kind of we sort of brainstormed about what to put on each song, and one of the things we decided early on was it's funny, we wanted to write a song with a lot of traditional topics, but we didn't want to make a traditional Western album. We wanted to try different things. Like on Cowboy Heart, if you listen to that, the instrumentation is kind of like the E Street Band and Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it's a Hammond B3 organ, and the piano is kind of in the choruses is kind of a rock thing. And so that was kind of how we did it. But then he sends it to the people, and everything that you heard on the piano, Pete Wasner, just came up with that. He figured out where to play and play that stuff. Although one of the things Merle's a magician at is, so everybody sends you what they have. And so he's got all this stuff. And so he'll say, okay, right here, all we need is a little piano, or right here, we need this mandolin kind of feature.
Amazing.
He's a magician.
Oh, it's just amazing.
Amazing.
Very quickly, Jim, we're going to take our Out West Shop ad break in just a moment. Do you want to mention the name of the record company?
Yes, I do. It's I'm thrilled to be on Birkeland Records from Houston, Texas. It's my friends Brian and Pam Kalanick. We're all from Beaumont, Texas. We grew up there, but we didn't know each other in Beaumont. So we met in at the Southwest Regional Folk Alliance years ago, and Brian has worked with Merle too. In fact, Brian was probably the person that introduced me to Merle, and so we got it done. And I sent it to him. I said, "What do you think? You think it'd fit on your label?" Because it's mostly Texas singer songwriters, although he is one from Boston, but. So and it's a thrill to be on that album because they just get. I mean, Daniel Bowling here from Albuquerque has got, and George Inslee. I mean, all these great songwriters, and Daniel Bowling just did an album with Tom Paxton. From goodness
Wow.
sake.
Very good.
So
We're going to take a very quick break and hear from our sponsor, Out West Shop. And when we come back, it's all about film.
all right.
Here at the Out West Shop, we're passionate about the American West, the truth and the myth. We're purveyors of fine Western goods. We scout for unique and distinctive apparel, accessories, home decor, and general merchandise that are a reflection of the Western lifestyle. We hunt for unique artisans and craftsmen who are inspired to create decorative art you can wear based on their own love for the story of the West. We round it up and bring it to you. Check out OutWestShop.com when you need anything Western.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with the Writer. Special guest, Jim Jones. Jim, we were talking about your music, and, didn't you just go to Montana for a film documentary?
I did it.
program?
Yeah, it was the second time we went to Montana in the winter. It was crazy. Susan's from Montana, so she has family that lived there, but it's still a crazy time to go. But they have this. It was his 21st year this year. The Big Sky Documentary Film Festival in Missoula, Montana, and so we were just up there all of last week and saw some amazing films. Everything from 4 and 5 minute short films to full length 2 hour and a half, 2 hour films, and incredibly varied in the subject matter and really well done. Very interesting.
We're going to play a song. I'm looking at time. We don't want to miss out on hearing this fabulous song. And it inspired a documentary that you're working on.
Yes.
The song is "It's a Cowboy I Will Be." You know what? Let's play it and then we'll chat about it.
All right.
So here's "It's a Cowboy I Will Be."
And I'll take the low road. I'll be in Scotland before ye. Me and the true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Born in the Highlands, the cattle kept us fed. As a wee lad I came to be a drover. Underneath the stars is where I made my bed, living on black pudding with the whiskey chaser. I fought the reavers as we drove the herd from Skye across those wild narrows of Kyrie. Survived potato famine, but the clearance by and by sent me packing across that wide Atlantic Sea. So you take the high road, you can take the low road too. You'll be in Scotland before me, for I'm headed out west. Keep Loch Lomond and the rest. Fare thee well, it's a cowboy I will be. I came to America, made my way out west through St. Louis and all the way to Denver. I learned to rope and ride, I conquered every test. Now we're driving a herd up to Montana.
Welcome back. Rendezvous with the Writer with Jim Jones and that song, Cowboy I Will Be.
We got
that
to
is
Montana.
a great song.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great song.
Oh my gosh, Jim, I'm looking at the time. So tell us a little bit about what have you got in the works for this documentary?
So just real quickly, the background is I wanted to go to Scotland because I met a promoter from Scotland, and I thought, well, I need a song about a Scottish cowboy. And so I started researching it. Well, it's fascinating, the history, and it goes back to the Scottish drovers and the cattle business that's over 1,000 years old in Scotland. and how the laws that they passed from 1745 to mid 1800s that affected them all the way through that century made it impossible for them to stay. And so there were so many immigrants that had to leave Scotland. And some of those Scottish drovers came out west. They came to the United States and they went out west, and they brought their skills and their point of view to that business, the cattle business. And so that got us going, and that got us to Scotland. And we filmed. We had these various experts on the history, and they've talked about all of that. We saw these amazing statues in churches where people had to stay while they were waiting to leave, and it's real powerful stuff. So we're trying to tell that story about how, what a hardship it was for them, and yet they came to America.
Yeah, we're very excited to see whatever comes of it, because it's such a powerful story. And every time you sing that song, let me tell you, listeners, if you're anywhere where you can see Jim Jones perform, or Jim Jones with the Cowboy Way perform, when he starts to do this song, your heartbeat, you just get so caught up in talk about storyteller. You're so caught up in the story, and we're all as exhausted as you are at the end of it.
I know.
We're put it all out there. Jim, where can people find you, and where might we see you next?
The best place to start looking for me is at my website, which is www.jimjoneswestern.com. The list of my performances and engagements is on there, and all my merchandise is available. And if Christmas is just around the corner, of course. And so the next place I'll be this weekend, I'm going to be down in Las Cruces, New Mexico, with the Western Writers of America at the Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum for their Cowboy Day celebration. And it'll be both books and music for me. And then a couple of weeks after that, I'm going to be in Texas. We're going to be in the Panhandle, and I don't know how that's all going to go, because they're trying to keep it from burning completely. And we may wind up doing some benefits. I hope we do. We'll have to see. But we have the Birkeland Records bunch. There's I guess 5 of us. They're going to be doing shows together up there in Amarillo area. And then the Cowboy Way will be back at the range in Bernalillo the first Saturday in April.
Very good.
So since we're talking about live performances, Jim, why should someone go and see a live performance?
Well, for one thing, if you go and see a live performance, and it's not like a great big one, big concert or something, big country or Taylor Swift or something like that, it's a real different experience. It's going to be in a smaller venue. It's going to be intimate. You're going to have an opportunity really to interact with the artists. You're going to hear music that you certainly hadn't heard on mainstream radio. That's going to be most of the time, a whole lot better than what you're going to hear on mainstream radio. It's just fun. And also it helps keep the art alive. I mean, if, most of the music is not, and I got nothing against Taylor Swift. I know people want to get down on her. I think she's wonderful, but we're not all Taylor Swift. But there's some wonderful stuff out there. And if people can't find it and support it, it isn't going to continue. So
yeah. We I'm kind of looking at the clock. Jim has a little quote that's from one of your books.
This quote is from Halo Moon. It's kind of the beginning of the book, And what did the old story say? A halo moon was an omen of things to come. Bad weather, maybe. Bad luck, perhaps. Trouble, probable. Change is coming, he thought, and it's not good.
And it wasn't.
And Jim is a wonderful writer. We're teasing you with that as well. Next week, we are actually going to be on the road ourselves. We're attending a couple of book festivals. So we are delighted that our wonderful friend, a mutual friend with Jim, Tom Swearingen, is stepping in once again to host. He's an award-winning poet, and he's become a fabulous co-host. I think we should go way more often, actually. I can't wait to see his show. So Tom is guest hosting another mutual friend of ours, a phenomenal cowboy poet, Mark Munsert. So you do not want to miss this next week. It's going to be a terrific show.
It will be.
And I don't think we have anything else except to say thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sam Hassan and LA Talk Radio. And thank you, Alex and the Hot Texas Swing Band. And do you have a closing comment?
It's always a great day out west.
Yes.
We'll see you down the trail. Keep reading.